I won't let it execute or finish something that I didn't look at. That's the number one advice, that it just understand what you are using AI for, because at the end you're here to learn.
This is Conversations on Careers and Professional Life, a podcast from the Foster School of Business MBA Career Management Office. I'm your host, Gregory Heller. This episode is part of a series called AI Ready, supported by Foster's AI Task Force. I'll be speaking with students from across Foster's master's programs and some faculty about how they're actually learning about and using AI in and out of the classroom, and how these experiences are helping prepare them for the next step in their careers. Most students who graduate AI Ready didn't start that way. Ahmad Ghabboun, my guest on today's episode, spent 15 years as a UX and product designer. And when he came to Foster's Masters of Science in Information Systems, or MSIS program, AI wasn't even on his career shortlist. But even before he graduated in June, he'd built a product called Synapse that won Best Business and Tech Product at Foster's Demo Day. This conversation is about that shift. What changed his mind, how his design background made him a better prompter than most engineers, and the multimodal systems he built to catch AI's mistakes before they reach a stakeholder. This is AI Ready with Ahmad Ghabboun. Ahmad, welcome to Conversations on Careers and Professional Life.
Thank you, Gregory, for hosting me into your podcast.
Great. So why don't you start by telling us a little bit about your background and what drove you to come back to school at Foster for the MSIS program?
Yeah, for the past 5 to 6 years, I spent most of my work and experience building software applications, more specifically web-based applications for startups. And throughout this journey, I was dealing with the product design aspect of it. And given the fact that I was in a startup environment, that exposed me a little bit to other aspects of the project, such as front end, back end engineering, and such. So, uh, I wanted to step up a little bit more beyond what design is and understand the behind the scenes type of thing about each project I work on in general. And that's the main driver that pushed me towards the MSIS program.
So give us a sense of your level of exposure to AI tools. I mean, you started this program in 2025. We all were introduced to ChatGPT, in 2022 at the end of that year. How much exposure did you have day to day? How much were you using it before you came into the program?
Yeah, it's quite interesting. It started gradually. It wasn't something I used to do every day, but I started using AI on the go to get more direct answers. So you can say, like a casual user, uh, same as everybody, like using Google to get answers, but I wanted to get quicker and more brief answers about uh, variety of different stuff. So I don't have to browse in different websites looking for that answer. So I found that was like more like a chat thing, dealing with AI, just to get me things on the go. And in some situations, I would use AI to explain things in Arabic, given the fact it's my first language, and explain it within the Arabic language context rather than just translating from English to Arabic.
All right. So a consumer user, not like a power user. You weren't vibe coding yet, I assume.
Absolutely not. No, I
All right.
I I wasn't aware of a lot of the tools that I know about today.
When was the moment that you realized that AI was going to really matter for the career that you wanted to pursue?
during the program or before that.
Either way, I mean, was it the thing that you were like, hey, I got to get into a program and really learn how to apply AI to business problems? Or was it like you started the program and your eyes were opened by a class or by talking to others who were
Yeah,
using it?
yeah. I gotta say, and it's gonna sound funny, but AI was not in my short list of, let's call it, career interests after school. My list was in different areas such as security, program management, data analytics. The moment that turned this around was more during the third quarter when I started AI classes. That's where everything just changed around, and it changed my mindset about AI. I wasn't too big on AI overall before that, but it turned out that it has a lot more than I at least did not know about. That was basically the moment that when I started using AI in different ways and building AI tools, that's where the whole mindset just turned around.
So, why don't you walk me through that class? Tell me a little bit about what were some of the assignments or the learning in the class that you were like, oh, wow, I can really do some interesting things here if I embrace this new technology.
Yeah, it all started with the first AI class we took, and we started by actually vibe coding using a platform called Lovable to build marketing websites for a business of our choice. It got to be like something like a local business. So I picked that one specific coffee place in Bellevue that recently opened up and they don't have a website. I have a good relationship with them. I was like, okay, you know what? Let's try it out. So that's the first experience building using vibe coding, and what was impressive about it that I was able to build a design which I used to do for the past few years in much less time that I would. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of a sad, happy kind of truth, but it was impressive. I look at it from more like efficient way, so I can focus on other aspects of the project. So it just builds things, and the level of understanding of that AI tool was actually quite impressive.
Yeah, I spent 7 years building content management based websites earlier in my career. And the first time that I asked one of these tools to build me a website, I was like, wow, that was just, I don't know, 6 weeks of a multi person team. And it did it in 6 minutes.
Absolutely.
It,
Exactly.
it is a pretty amazing experience.
Exactly. To add a little bit more to that, the more impressive outcomes came along when in the second part of that class where I built an actual app. That's the one that is called Synapse that I won the best business and tech product award of. That's where like the whole thing just was impressive and turned the whole thing around for me. Uh,
Sure. So let's talk about this app that you built, why you built it, what tools you used to build it, and how what you were learning in class supported that process overall.
yeah. First of all, it's called Synapse, and I'll start with how I thought about it. So before the before I started AI classes, one of the habits I used to do with AI is that I would go to one model, for example, Gemini, and ask it a question about an assignment to explain something for me. And what I would do is I copy and paste that result. I take it to another model, such as like Claude, and tell it, hey, I'm working on this and that, like give it a little bit of context and tell it, this is Gemini's answer. What do you think about it? And then Claude would, answer me, and I would take that answer back to Gemini and I tell it, hey, this is what Claude thinks about the problem. And in some occasions, if I'm not closer to 100% sure about the answer, I would take all the context to a third model and I give it an explanation and I tell it both answers and what it thinks about them. So it has a little bit of more support. It all started by that. And I was like, okay, what if I build an app that can do this experience in one place so you don't have to juggle between different models. But at the same time, after thinking through about it, and I would say one of the great and very supportive resources I got from Professor Leo, where he gave me a lot of insights on how to do the strategic part of that, not only the technical part, but the strategic part of how to think about that application. I wanted to narrow it down to something more specific. So it doesn't look like another AI chat platform to use. What Synapse basically does, it's specifically made for technical product managers to basically do the governance part and the audit part for their projects. Usually, TPMs, when they are work on preparing documentations or such, and for those who use AI and rely on it, sometimes AI would turn out some hallucinations and answers that they are not exactly within the context. So what Synapse does is basically it extracts the artifacts and the information in the beginning from one model, and then it takes it to a dual LLM check to make sure that this answer is actually good or not. And those are they. I mean, when it goes to that dual kind of validation thing, they are different models, not the same one. So it doesn't share the same context. And then the third step is where Synapse basically jumps in and acts like a judge, right? And says, oh, this is a good answer, this is a bad answer, and it identifies the gap feeds. And basically, Synapse is a bunch of skills and tools that I built outside, and I made the LLMs call it when needed to look at the answers and identify the gap feeds, completeness score, which I came up with like something hypothetical for TPMs to look at just to give them kind of a visual indication where they're at with the project. And the gap feeds actually give them things that they would not pay attention to in those long documents. And yeah, it's kind of a quality audit control platform.
And does this connect with other tools that a TPM is already using regularly?
Yes. So part of what I did with Synapse is that after it identifies the gap feeds of a project, uh, there's some logic that it was built in that for high confidence gap feeds, it gives the user the option to send it basically you can connect Synapse to one of the project management platforms such as Jira, Azure DevOps, and create it as a ticket. So all you need to do is just connect it the first time. And then after that, with one click, you can send it to Jira, for example, and it creates it as a ticket for your team to see it. Other than that, also, Synapse can be connected with GitHub repository for everything to be synced in. So you don't have, it actually cuts down a lot on the manual work, which saves a lot of time.
All right. So going back to this idea that you're giving the same task to two different models and having them do it, and then you're having a third model basically say which is the better one here and where is their conflict. It's almost like a wisdom of crowds and then having a judge. Like how many jelly beans are in the jar and ask a whole bunch of people and
Yeah.
then figure out, okay, like this one's way off, but now we're sort of starting to get to like, here's the place where there's a lot of alignment between what the two are coming up with. So that must be accurate. Does that
Yeah.
describe it in layman's terms?
Yes, yes. So the and this is all automated, nothing for the user to
Hmm.
actually do.
Hmm.
And I'll be also like honest about one part that I purposely did not automate the whole process on purpose because I believe that TPMs or technical product managers, they still need to read between the lines so they are aware of what's going on. I mean, with AI, we can easily just with one click to solve the whole thing, but it will not give enough context for TPMs to speak with their managers, whoever they need to submit artifacts for.
Hmm.
And the Synapse basically also not only using LLMs, it's based on models that, like I mentioned earlier, that there are a bunch of skills and tools that they are actually like sort of machine learning
Hmm.
models that they don't only just ask LLM random questions. And that slightly reduce the amount of hallucination that happens in the answers.
Okay. And then by not automating every step of this, like by not making it so that Synapse actually just automatically creates these tickets and checks things into GitHub and whatever, you're
Mm.
forcing a human to stay in the loop. That TPM is, they're sort of in the driver's seat and they're making the decision of what to do with what Synapse has come up with.
Exactly, exactly true. And also, Synapse identifies gap feeds, right? As a TPM, they still need the context in their mind, right? When they speak in meetings, they need to know what a kind of gap feeds they identified.
Hmm.
If somehow they clicked, like solve everything, right? Or execute all, or whatever the action button is, they won't be able to take a look at these breakdowns. Now, Synapse still breaks them down in a brief and good way to give enough context, not kind of a long, boring documents to look at and read.
Right. So this is sort of the idea that AI, one of the dangers is the cognitive offloading, having it do all the work, and then you as the human can't really speak to what's been done or why. So
Yeah,
Synapse is keeping that TPM in the loop, making sure that they have the context and understand what's going on so that they can speak to it with their team, managers, subordinates, etc.
that's exactly right.
All right. So, what? How do you think your experience in UX and product design has helped you use AI to design a product like Synapse?
Yeah, it's gonna sound kind of funny, but I feel my product design experience helped me reshape my mindset on how to engineer the actual prompt, right? So a prompt is basically a bunch of words and lines that you write down
Hmm.
and it gives you a result. But if you have a background in product design, user experience, user interface, you'll kind of use some technical words within the design world that other users might not have, right? Some phrases that I used to use during my experience, that actually was the biggest help I personally faced, while I was building Synapse, and not only Synapse, I mean other vibe coding products, is that the design mindset that I had and how to prompt, like
Hmm.
what to use, because still the AI design platforms, they still need guidance. And that's where my experience came in.
Yeah. So the more context you give it, the more detailed your prompt is, the closer that output is going to be to what you're looking for. And as someone who was on the UX side of things, you probably received or created user stories and design briefs. So you sort of had the language of that already because you might have been on the receiving side of those things. And now
Yeah, yeah,
you're writing those artifacts into a prompt for Lovable or Replit or whatever to actually build the thing. And so you're skill is writing a good prompt, and that skill is informed by your experience
Yeah,
prior to getting
yeah,
involved with
that's
AI.
exactly right. And also to add to that, not it's not only about the amount of information that you give it, it's also about the type of information and the phrases that you use,
Hmm.
right? For example, when you look at any UI page in front of you, as a regular user, you won't know that probably an empty space where you need to fill out an information is called a placeholder,
Hmm.
right? So when I was talking to Lovable, even using Claude to build the user interfaces, I would use those terms and phrases like placeholders, uh, wireframes, uh, padding, margins. So, like front end technical things to do what I have in mind. And that actually helped me a lot produce something out of the usual that AI produces. So if you ask an AI to produce like a marketing website for your juice company, right?
Hmm.
It will give you a template that
Hmm.
it had in their mind, and it will just generate that website for you. But what I would do is just I add a little more of the secret sauce, you can call it. It's not too secret, but to improve the output.
Let's take a little step back to the experience of being in class. So obviously you're learning things from the professor. Everyone talks about Professor Leo. I
Yeah.
have him on the podcast as well, and I'm on the AI task force with him, and his enthusiasm is infectious. Every time I see him present, I come away with ideas and I start banging away at my own projects. Um, but how did the experience of being in a community of other students, learning about these tools, solving their own problems with it, working on their own projects, tell me a little bit about how that experience influenced your own, like being in the classroom with others in this learning environment.
Yeah. I'd say the best thing that, and that's just my personal perspective about it, I'd say the best thing that could happen to any uh, person who's pursuing learning overall, right? Either at work or at school. The best thing that could happen to that person is being surrounded by different perspectives overall. Sometimes not necessarily related to the topic you're working on or the profession that you're working on, but it's just, a person only has two eyes. And if you can get a few extra pair of eyes, that's always a big plus. And that's how I look at it. I look at everything as a learning opportunity. Uh, and by having conversations with peers, all students have a very unique perspective to share. And sometimes, even if I have about 15 years of experience in the design world overall, and yet I still had conversations with people who never done design before, and they actually sparked a brilliant idea that I never thought of, right? So that is the opportunity that I personally take advantage of, being surrounded by unique and smart people.
It's interesting because in the before times, before we had AI who could do all the development work for us, when you built a product, you worked with a team of people, and that team of people had diverse experience, they had different opinions, and sometimes by banging those around in that project team, the thing you create is better, is different than what you would have, and it's better than it would have been. And I think about something that I teach in my communication class about data visualization. If you go back
Mhm.
50 years before we had Lotus Notes and Excel, if you wanted to create a chart, a business analyst didn't create a chart alone. A business analyst worked with a designer and probably someone else. There were like three people on a team to create a chart. Then Lotus Notes and Excel come along, and some guy on his computer can hit chart recommender and pick a bar chart or a pie chart and select their data and just make the thing. And it's not always a great way to represent or present that information. And I think what you're pointing to here is that we're at a point where one person behind their keyboard with a bunch of AI tools can build a product. But that
Yeah,
product may be made better by interacting with other human beings to get insights and input to sharpen what that output is. And you can iterate faster because you're working with your AI tools, but we shouldn't neglect the fact that bringing other humans into the process is
absolutely not.
probably going to create a better product, even though we
Yeah,
could do it in a complete vacuum with just AI at this point.
yeah, absolutely not. AI is great, AI is smart, but I personally look at it from a perspective that it's a great and creative and fast assistant to you,
Hmm.
right? It still needs input. It still needs information. And also, if you notice that if you used a certain model for a while, such as Claude, for example, look at how it used to respond to you when you first started to use it rather than a year later or 2 years later. You'll see that there's a pattern that has changed. It learned a lot from you. So that's where the
Yeah.
assistant is getting more experience,
I,
right?
I think it's like the tool has also changed, but it has also learned about you. And it's like the difference between the first project you work on with someone and the 10th a year later. It's gotten a little bit
Absolutely.
more familiar with you. It understands what you want. It has all this context that it's building up. If you don't clean it out, right, it has this context about you. So sometimes you're sort of in the same bubble with it. You're no longer
Yeah.
getting the outside view anymore. It's maybe
Yeah.
become a
Yeah.
little myopic, and you need those outside perspectives that
Yeah.
you can get from a human,
Absolutely.
or I guess by bringing in another different LLM, perhaps.
Absolutely. If you think about it, one person cannot handle all sides or all different aspects of a project, right? They still need different minds
Hmm.
that can contribute in that project and come up with a great idea. And sometimes one thing that I personally think that human still does much better job in that particular area, which is a human will be able to tell you, "Oh, hold on, just hit the brakes. That idea is good, but you're still missing X, Y, and Z," right? Some AI models, they tend to agree with you all the
Yeah.
time. I gotta say it gotten much better than before, but it still agrees with you. And that's where in the real world, you just need someone to tell you, hey, this idea is great, but the execution is it needs more work or
Yeah.
something like that.
You need someone to push back on you a little bit, to
Exactly.
challenge you. And naturally, AI is not going to be that unless you force it into that situation and you really tell it,
Yeah.
like, I want you to play devil's advocate. I want you to poke holes in this. I want you to tear it down. Like,
Yeah.
treat me like Steve Jobs treated engineers at Apple, right? Like, beat me up. Don't hold back.
Yeah, yeah. I heard stories from students that they asked their AI to specifically do that for them.
Let me ask you just a couple more questions here. So you're at the tail end of your experience in the MSIS program. In a couple weeks, you're going to be out in the real world. What advice would you have for students who are just starting a graduate program, whether that's MSIS or the MSBA or MBA, right? Is there any advice you have about how to approach learning about and using AI during their time back here at Foster?
Yeah, I would say the first and very important advice that I already actually told few students because I am an MSIS ambassador, so I tend to meet with students, talk to them about the program. One thing I really focus on is that use AI, but don't overuse it or don't just blindly use it.
Mhm.
I would say just take the time to understand the context. What I personally do, I don't tend to read many pages of documents, right? And this is just a skill that I don't have. But what I do is I upload the document to AI and I let it give me an explanation in a brief way and summarize the key points. So instead of reading like 20, 30 pages of document, you get to read about 5 pages, right? But I won't let it execute or finish something that I didn't look at. That's the number one advice, that it just understand what you are using AI for, because at the end, you're here to learn about topics and you're investing a lot in that. You're investing your time, your money, your brain power
Mhm.
too.
Mhm.
Might as well just use that brain power to actually learn something, not just use AI as someone who's doing the job for you and you end up just submitting the assignments.
Yeah.
That's just my main goal and my main thing that I always go by.
I talk about this as the productivity mindset versus the learning or even like mastery mindset. And I think
Yeah,
sometimes when you have a lot of work to do, you can think, oh, I can just offload a bunch of this to AI and it can get it done. But
yeah,
from the professor side, the faculty side of me, there is just about zero value to me to the assignments that students submit. All the value
yeah,
is to the
exactly.
student in the doing of it. So if they don't even do it, if you're as a student you're using AI to do the assignment, which doesn't actually call for you to use AI to do,
Yeah,
then you're
yeah,
not
yeah,
learning how to do it. And you're stuck in this productivity mindset, and you're here at Foster to learn how to do these things, to develop the skill
absolutely.
and to develop the discernment, the competency around understanding what right is, what a good work product is. And if you don't spend the time learning that, then when you go out in the work world and people are handing you AI slop, you're not even going to be able to detect that it's slop. You won't be able to identify a problem in a
Yeah,
calculation or something that's been
exactly.
completely missed.
Yeah, or even when you're in a meeting
Hmm.
or an interview, right? Actually, most interviews now, they put a control on your screen.
Hmm.
So they make sure you don't use AI. So anything that you do, even they have face recognition, they can track where your eyes are
Yeah.
going. And I've seen those. I did a little bit of experiment in them, and it's actually quite impressive and accurate. It can tell if you're looking away to your phone
Hmm.
or your side computer or tablet. That's actually a thing. So, also in meetings, like if you get asked a question, it's going to be very awkward that you just pull up your phone or your computer and you just ask AI,
Yeah.
right? Or even if you have something automated that captures the voice,
Mhm.
right? It will still, AI gives you the perfect answer that it doesn't exist in the real world,
Yeah.
right? It's like a script that it reads it out loud, and that's where you know it's an AI answer.
Yeah.
The second important thing I would tell students is that think about what career path you want to pursue and look at the areas that AI is contributing within that area and learn about it. Learn how AI is doing that contribution, learn about what models are best used within that area. That will get you a skill that, many people probably won't have because yes, I use AI, right? If I go to an interview, I use AI. They're gonna ask you what kind of AI, what kind of model, and why you use that specific model, right?
Mhm.
They ask this question for a purpose because they want to know how much you're aligned with the model that they're using at work. But if you just vaguely say that, oh, I use AI means Gemini, ChatGPT, Claude, and each one of them has many different models and they're different. That's one thing I would say. And to add a little bit to that is just make a lot of experimentations, like experience the model and see how it behaves with you. Of course, you're going to land on one platform that helps you with the general stuff, but it's always nice to get a good knowledge overview about different models and which one is good for what, which one is not. For example, I personally use like Gemini Pro is really good at image
Yeah.
visualization, right? They have that capability much better than other models. So I mainly use visualizations in Gemini. But surprisingly, also one point to keep in mind that AI is moving super
Yeah.
fast. ChatGPT just came out with a crazy AI generation model that actually competes really well with Gemini. It's always good to have not only general knowledge, specific knowledge about
Yeah.
that.
So what I hear you saying first and foremost is like think about the career you're targeting and figure out how people in that career are using AI, which tools they're using, how they're using them, so that you can begin to learn how to use them. The second thing I hear you saying is it's what Ethan Mollick refers to as the jagged edge of AI capability. Some things, it's like way out there and it's really good. And you'd think the task right next to it, it would be good at, and it's not. So understand that there's this jagged edge, and that jagged edge is different from model to model and changes from model release to model release. So there's like you have to always experiment and keep on trying different models for different things because things are changing. So this actually brings me to really my last two questions. The first is with all of this change, how do you stay up on this? How do you prevent yourself from just being like, hey, I got my Gemini over here. I know what it does. I like it. I got Claude over here. I know what it does. I like it. And I'm good. I don't need to learn anything more. How do you stay on top of these developments?
I'd say Claude today will absolutely be different probably tomorrow or next
Mm-hmm.
week, right? So if I rely on the concept that I know these tools, it's a hit and miss, right? So you will still get good things going, but you don't know what has been upgraded, what has been improved in the next few. And especially, I keep bringing Claude in on the table because Claude has been releasing a lot of improvements, a lot of new features in a very short time.
Mm-hmm.
So the wisdom here is that I wouldn't rely too much on what my knowledge about AI today only. I would keep updating, and that's what I personally do. Is that experimenting what's going on, learning all the ins and outs. At least if you can't every day, just make sure that you keep up with what's going on, what the latest trends are, because everything is guided by
Yeah.
trends. So we need to keep up with that and understand what it means to your usage, not only a topic that you read. If you're reading about how image visualization happens in Gemini and you're interested in that field and they come up with a new model that for example, 3.2 or 3.3, right? You need to learn what makes 3.2 or 3 different than the basic 3.0 or 3. So that's basically it.
Yeah. So it's like you can't be an expert at everything, but with the thing that you're doing with these tools, the way you're using it, you should be on top of how the tools are evolving for that use case. So my
Absolutely.
last question, Foster has the stated goal in our current vision statement that every student graduates AI ready. So I ask you, Ahmed, do you feel like you're AI ready?
Yes, I absolutely am. I am definitely ready. I think Foster gave me the robust foundation to start the cycle, right? And start my career path. One thing I would say that it's still things are moving fast and it's changing. So Foster gives you the resources, it gives you all the right things to start with. And after that, you still need to learn. I mean, even if you're, and you probably know if you're in a work environment, every day you learn something new. So you still don't have everything that you need. But yes, absolutely. Foster gives you the robust knowledge and hands-on experience and for you to take it out to the real world and start building.
I think that's a great place to leave it. Ahmad Ghabboun, thank you so much for having this conversation on careers and professional life.
Thank you very much, Gregory.
Here are a few things I took away from my conversation with Ahmed. First, you should match your AI learning to your target career. Find out which tools and which specific models people in that role are using, and then build real fluency with them. A vague familiarity is not going to be enough to get through the interviews. Second, your prior experience can be a real asset. Ahmed's design vocabulary let him direct AI with precision a generalist can't match. Whatever your background is, that domain language can be a real advantage. And finally, keep a human in the loop. Ahmed deliberately left parts of Synapse unautomated so that the product manager stays in command of the context. If you offload too much of the work, you lose the ability to speak to it. Thanks for listening to Conversations on Careers and Professional Life. If this episode was useful, share it with a friend or classmate. You can help others find the show by leaving a rating or review on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, or Amazon Music. And hit subscribe so you don't miss the rest of the AI Ready miniseries. Conversations on Careers and Professional Life is produced by me, Gregory Heller, with support from the Foster School of Business MBA Career Management Office and Foster's AI Task Force. Show notes, past episodes, and contact info are all at conversationsoncareers.com.